Tensions between Israel and Hezbollah have escalated dramatically following a series of coordinated attacks by the Lebanese militant group on Israeli military targets. These attacks, involving both rockets and armed drones, mark a significant escalation in the ongoing conflict. Israel has responded with airstrikes in Gaza, further deepening the humanitarian crisis in the Palestinian territory. The international community has expressed deep concern over the escalating violence and called for restraint from both sides. The recent Hezbollah attacks, which targeted multiple Israeli military installations, appear to be in retaliation for Israel's ongoing actions in Gaza. Hezbollah, a powerful Iran-backed Shiite Muslim group, has vowed to defend Lebanon and the Palestinian people against Israeli aggression. Israel, for its part, maintains that it is acting in self-defense and has accused Hezbollah of deliberately targeting civilians. The situation remains extremely volatile, with both sides exchanging fire across the border. The potential for further escalation is high, raising fears of a wider regional conflict. International efforts are underway to broker a ceasefire, but it remains unclear if or when these efforts will be successful. In the meantime, the humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate, with civilians bearing the brunt of the violence. The international community must act swiftly and decisively to prevent further bloodshed and alleviate the suffering of innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. A lasting solution to the conflict requires addressing the underlying political issues and finding a way for Israelis and Palestinians to coexist peacefully. Until then, the cycle of violence and retaliation seems destined to continue. Hezbollah launched a multi-pronged assault on Israeli military positions, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of Israeli defenses. One of the most daring attacks involved multiple drones targeting the Kiryat military base in Tel Aviv. This base serves as the headquarters for the Israeli Ministry of Defense, the General Staff, and Air Force Command. The attack on such a high-profile target sent shockwaves through Israel and underscored Hezbollah's capabilities. In addition to the drone strikes, Hezbollah also employed rocket barrages aimed at strategic military installations. The Amos military base near Afula, a crucial transportation and technology hub, was targeted. Another barrage struck the Ramim battalion headquarters in Hunin village. These attacks highlight Hezbollah's strategic targeting of key military infrastructure within Israel. The attacks were not limited to specific bases. Hezbollah also claimed responsibility for rocket attacks on Israeli soldiers stationed south of the Al-Manara settlement and east of Maroun al-Ras village. These attacks, though less publicized, demonstrate Hezbollah's intent to engage Israeli forces directly and disrupt their operations along the border. Hezbollah's coordinated attacks using a combination of drones and rockets demonstrate a significant escalation in both capability and intent. These attacks, beyond their immediate impact, serve as a potent message to Israel, signaling Hezbollah's resolve to defend its interests and retaliate against perceived aggression. The success of these attacks, particularly the drone strike on the Kiryat base, has undoubtedly rattled Israeli security officials and raised concerns about Hezbollah's growing military prowess. Following the Hezbollah attacks, Israel launched retaliatory airstrikes in Gaza, a densely populated Palestinian territory already grappling with a dire humanitarian crisis. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, claimed that their targets were Hamas military infrastructure, but the strikes resulted in civilian casualties and further damage to Gaza's fragile infrastructure. The airstrikes drew international condemnation, with many expressing concern over the disproportionate use of force against a civilian population. One of the airstrikes hit a tent housing displaced Palestinians in the Al-Mawasi area, west of Khan Yunis. The attack resulted in numerous injuries, including women and children. This incident highlighted the indiscriminate nature of the airstrikes and the vulnerability of civilians in Gaza. Aid organizations operating in the area condemned the attack, calling it a clear violation of international humanitarian law. The airstrikes have exacerbated the already dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. The ongoing Israeli blockade, in place for over a decade, has severely restricted the flow of essential goods and services into the territory. The airstrikes have further damaged Gaza's infrastructure, including power plants and water treatment facilities, making it even more challenging for aid organizations to provide assistance to those in need. The international community has called for an immediate ceasefire and urged Israel to lift the blockade on Gaza. However, there are no signs of de-escalation and the situation remains highly volatile. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is worsening by the day, and the international community must take concrete steps to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people. The international community has reacted with alarm to the escalating violence between Israel and Hezbollah. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting to discuss the situation, with many members calling for restraint and a de-escalation of hostilities. The UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, expressed his deep concern over the civilian casualties and urged all parties to respect international humanitarian law. The United States, a close ally of Israel, has condemned Hezbollah's attacks but also called on Israel to exercise restraint in its response. The US has expressed support for Israel's right to self-defense, but has also urged all parties to avoid actions that could further escalate the conflict. The European Union has also condemned the violence and called for an immediate ceasefire. The EU has urged both sides to engage in dialogue and find a peaceful solution to the conflict. The EU has also expressed concern over the humanitarian situation in Gaza and called for the unimpeded delivery of aid to those in need. The Arab League has condemned Israel's actions in Gaza and called for an end to the blockade. The Arab League has also called for international action to protect the Palestinian people and hold Israel accountable for its actions.